This next story, I think, is going to show you a little bit about the Black misleadership class, but this time in particular in the Democratic Party and the failures that have come from that. We're going to dive into these segments here with Hakei Jeff and Jim Clyburn. Now, for those who are not aware, Jim Clyburn just had his fish fry in South Carolina, and there's a lot of politics that's going on around that. Hakei Jeff just had an interview with Dana Bash on CNN where she actually did pressure him. I was surprised that she did this, but the question is around, why isn't the Democratic Party doing more? Why aren't you, Hakei Jeff, as a leader of the party? Why aren't you doing more? If you say that you are, what are you trying to do? So the two Black misleadership class characters from the Democratic Party tonight, Hakei Jeff and Jim Clyburn. Hakei Jeff, again, as I've said before, is a puppet. He is there to do more for Israel. He's very clear about, how close he is with AIPAC. And he said Israel was like the sixth borough if he could make it anything. That's really his assignment. His assignment is not to really try to help anybody in his district. It's not to do anything more than really that. Now, of course, Hakei Jeff is Black. So for Black voters, they can say, look, there's someone that looks like you, vote for the Black guy, even though he's not assigned to help Black people at all. But the Democratic Party has been, I guess, trying to find a way to recruit more young support since they lost young voters, to get more Black voters back into the party because they lost Black voters this past presidential election. And Hakei Jeff is put in the hot seat here about what are they going to do.
Mr. Leader, you brought up polls, so let me tell you about a new one that just came out here at CNN this morning. It shows that only 19% of Americans say that your party can get things done. 36 say the same about Republicans. And just 16% say your party has strong leaders. It's pretty rough, and you are one of them.
And that's a slap in the face to Hakei Jeff because he is one of the leaders. But look at these numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Only 19% believe that Democrats can get things done. Only 16% believe that the Democratic Party has strong leaders. But also, if you look at the numbers on the Republican side, I wouldn't say this is great either. 36% can get things done. 40% believe that the Republican Party has strong leaders. But the point is, with everything that has happened so far under Donald Trump's administration, the Democratic Party polling should be higher. The reason that it's not is because I think I'm starting to see for the first time in my adult life that more people are starting to realize that the Democrats aren't really trying to fight. They're not really trying to fight back against Donald Trump. And especially now, when you look at even like the Gaza situation, people are seeing, oh, both of these parties support what Israel is doing. Whoa, what is happening here? Russia and Ukraine, people are starting to see, oh, both of these parties are giving weapons and money to Ukraine. What is happening here, right? So there are things that the Democratic Party could be doing, but they're not trying to because, like, again, the goal isn't necessarily to win. The goal is to fundraise. It's all about the money, and that's what they're looking towards. But imagine being Hakei Jeff and sitting in that hot seat, and these numbers are presented to you. Let's see how Hakei chooses to respond.
And you are one of those leaders. How do you turn that around?
Yeah, we don't have the presidency right now, so that's always going to be challenging a few months after a presidential election. But we have to continue to make the case, one, that Democrats, of course, are the party that is determined to make life more affordable for everyone.
Let's go back. I'm sorry. We have to go back to the way that he started this conversation, right? Because he's bringing this back to the presidency.
Leaders, how do you turn that around?
Yeah, we don't have the presidency right now, so that's always going to be challenging a few months after a presidential election. But
So let's go ahead and debunk this part right here, right? Yeah, obviously a Republican is in the White House right now, but the point is when you did have the presidency and you had the House, Democrats held the lead in the House. You didn't really try to get, aside from that infrastructure bill and the child tax credit, which you guys cut short. You didn't get anything. You didn't even pass the minimum wage increase. And there were Democrats that voted against that in the Senate, by the way. It wasn't just the Republicans that voted against it. So the point is, number one, this is not just about the presidency. Who passes legislation? Congress. We need to go over the three branches of government here. Congress are the ones that pass legislation. I don't know how many times people need to explain this, right? So you didn't pass things that were really going to transform the lives of the American people. And that's how someone like Donald Trump was able to come back in and win again. And now we get it. No, you don't have the White House, but there are other things that you could be doing, but you're not going. And in many ways, you sound a lot like the Republicans, especially when it comes to foreign policy. It should have never gotten to this point. Should have never gotten to that point. There's a reason why you lost young voters. There's a reason why you lost Black voters. There's a reason why you lost men. And until the Democratic Party is willing to actually sit down and hear those things and say they want to change, nothing is going to change. Because who they really work for are their donors. So as long as the donors tell them, don't pass this piece of legislation, not to mention you have lobby interest groups that also write legislation. And Hakeem Jeffries and Jim Clyburn and all the so-called leaders of the Democratic Party, the reality is they are not willing to go against their donors. Now, he's not going to tell Dana that. And Dana's not going to tell you that, even though she already knows as well.
We have to continue to make the case, one, that Democrats, of course, are the party that is determined to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, for hardworking American taxpayers, that we believe that we need to lower the high cost of living, which for decades has been going up while the size of the middle class has been going down. So understandably, there's real frustration amongst the American people. They should be frustrated.
But they're
Housing
frustrated
costs are
with
too
you
high.
as well,
Child
with
care
Democrats as well.
I was surprised she said that. So Dana says that they're frustrated with you as well.
Of course, they're frustrated with the system.
No, well, you're a part of the system. You back the system. You support the system. Your donors support the system. So when I say like we need to demand more, I mean things like this. When Biden was in office and there was the push for the $15 minimum wage, as I've shown you, if you look at the out of reach housing report, $15 an hour is not enough to live off of in this country. And a lot of adults, and you guys take a look around next time, okay? Because things have definitely changed where you're seeing more people working minimum wage jobs that are adults, not teenagers. And for the people who say, well, those jobs are only supposed to be for teenagers, well, no, because someone has to manage McDonald's. Someone has to be a manager. The teenagers aren't going to be managers. And then also people have to work during the day at these businesses as well when the kids are in school. So no, the jobs are not just for teenagers. So I've noticed that a lot of these places I've been going to that pay minimum wage, I'm noticing like it's a lot of adults working those jobs. It's a lot of adults that are the cashier. I go to the convenience store. There's a woman in her 70s that's a cashier at the convenience store that I go to. Why she got to work? You see what I mean? So this is a big part of the problem. So when you ask for the $15 minimum wage, and we talking about meeting the moment, when the Democrats were asking for that, they were already behind. $15 an hour is not good. That's not going to cut it. We passed that in Massachusetts years ago. That's how far behind they are. So if it's about making things better for the American people, they're not doing that either. Neither party is doing it. And that's how you get this pendulum swinging back and forth. That's how you go from an Obama to a Trump, then to a Biden, then back to Trump again. Because people's economic needs are not being met. Here's another part of this interview I thought was interesting.
In terms of how we will respond to what Trump and the administration has endeavored to do, we will make that decision in a time, place, and manner of our choosing, but the response will be continuous and it will meet the moment that is required.
They don't have a plan, guys. Guys, they don't have a plan. You see this? Oh, we'll meet that moment at the time and place of choosing. That means they ain't picked no place, they ain't picked no time because they don't have a plan. They're just going with the flow. And in some ways, too, in some ways, they can't push back on Donald Trump because they share some of the same donors. It just, that's the other part that's problematic.
What exactly does that mean? Have you not decided how to respond?
We've publicly responded in a variety of different ways. We haven't let our foot off the gas pedal in terms of additional things that may take place with respect to our congressional oversight authority and capacity. We will respond in a time, place, and manner of our choosing if this continues to happen. In terms of
Guys, this is not good. Again, he's supposed to be one of the leaders. He's the minority speaker of the House. He's supposed to be one of the leaders. They don't have a plan. Cloudness said they're on the non-plan plan. There you go. They don't know. They don't know what to do. They don't know what, they tried to come up with this seminar of how to recruit men. And they thought it would be a good idea to have a female do that it's an absolute disaster. But when you look at who their donors are, I said, I'll leave this here. Then you understand why. You understand why. This is why you hear him talk more about Israel than other issues, other real economic issues, right? He's from New York. What is he doing for his constituents in New York? He gets over $1.6 million from AIPAC. That's what Hakei Jeffries was put there to do. He's not there to really solve any economic issues or try to make any real transformative change. He's there to be a puppet. You can see it even with the statement here. Like I said, he's always very vocal. Two things, Hakei Jeffries is going to be vocal about. He's going to be vocal if it has anything to do with Israel. And he'll be vocal if he's trying to counteract the Republican Party. Other than that, he don't really offer anything. He's window dressing, okay? That's what Hakei is. So he put out a statement here about the Boulder attack, right? My statement on the anti-Semitic attack in Boulder, Colorado. The Jewish community in America has once again become the target of horrific anti-Semitic attack as residents of Boulder gathered on the eve of holiday of Shabbat to raise awareness for the hostages still being held captive in Gaza. The peacefulness of their assembly was shattered. And he goes on, yada, yada, yada. Like I said, you can count on him and Richie Torres to do two things there, and that's to stand up for Israel, right? Okay. But when you look at who's paying him, when you see where the money is it's all connected. You have no credibility. I think someone should run against Hakei Jeffries. I think they should run against him as an independent, and I think they need to blow him out of the water. Send him packing. That's what I think. Because this guy was a fraud. He was a fraud from day one. They convince you he's going to help out people, and particularly he's going to help out you New Yorkers, working class people, and he's going to look out for them. He's just a suit, an empty suit. That's it. Puppet. They have no plan. And you can tell that they have no plan when we talk about the Black misleadership class, when we pivot over to Jim Clyburn. So he just had his fish fry in South Carolina, and I used to live in South Carolina, and I can tell you a number of people told me the fish is dry. And I'll tell you, make your own fish. You ain't got to go there to his fish fry just so you can see all these different politicians, et cetera, and this gathering or whatever. His day's coming too, where the days of Jim Clyburn being able to have the energy and the pull that he did is also starting to wither, because you'll see this situation that they're running into as well. South Carolina's first in the nation primary status looks fraught as Dems sour on Biden. The Palmetto dinner and Representative Jim Clyburn fish fry have drawn rising stars who are eyeing the Democratic nomination. So again, here's Jim Clyburn here. So what's happening? So one of the things that the Democratic Party is debating is whether or not they want to hold on to South Carolina as an early primary state. Now, this decision to me never really made any sense in the first damn place. Biden was the one who changed it, I guess, to try to help them with re-election presidential campaign, and they still lost because South Carolina is a red state. I live there. I know it's red. But the reason why they target it, I think, is because it has the oldest electorate and also because of a large Black population. Now, there's other states that you could look at for that. You could look at Georgia. You could look at Maryland. You could look at, you know what I mean? There's other states, but South Carolina, older electorate, Black people in South Carolina tend to be a little bit more conservative. I can tell you that from my experience there. So it doesn't mean that they vote Republican, but they'll vote Democrat because of some of the social issues. But even on certain things, they still tend to be a little bit more conservative. So the reason with that, I think, is that the Democratic Party is trying to keep like that moderate energy, that moderate base, and have that be the center of the Democratic Party. So they feel like, oh, South Carolina's, a perfect place. And then we can prove that, look how well it worked out for Joe Biden. And then we can continue to go from there. The problem that they've run into now is that some people have now decided that they don't know if it's a good idea for the Democratic Party to keep South Carolina as an early primary state because it attaches them to Joe Biden and they're trying to move forward and not backward. Let's go ahead and get into this part here. And we all know how Jim Clyburn came in to, help Joe Biden, how he came in and everything changed after that, right? Right. So we'll jump to this part here. Biden's return to the national spotlight through negative coverage detailing how those in his inner circle shielded the president's deteriorating condition around the world from outside the world has only resurfaced some long-held misgivings about his legacy. All this talk about Biden and what should have and what could have, what might have, is a bunch of BS. That comes from Trav Robertson, a longtime Democratic operative and former chair of the party. We can peck that to death if you want to, but that is in the past. South Carolina represents going into the future. South Carolina, a state where Black Democrats make up a substantial portion of primary voters, played a pivotal role resurrecting Biden's moribund campaign. When Clyburn threw his support behind Biden ahead of the South Carolina in 2020, it vaulted him to the nomination and the ladder. So this part here, but that electoral situation was tenuous. By running for re-election, Biden sapped energy out of the 2024 primary. Now party officials are bracing for its status as the kickoff state to be ripped away. I think it would be a mistake to act like South Carolina's place at the top is just because of Biden, when this has been a conversation we've been having for 20 years. That's coming from Nick Sodal, who is an attorney and executive director of South Carolina House of Democrats. So what you see happening here, folks, is that some people in the Democratic Party, they're not sure if it's a good idea to keep South Carolina as the first state in the primary because of its attachment to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was the one who made it to be so. Now, I feel this way. First of all, I never agreed with these first and early primary states. I think everybody should, all these states with primaries should be on the same day or the same week. I don't think it should be this state goes first, that state goes on Super Tuesday and all this kind of stuff. Ideally, it's supposed to encourage some type of momentum for said candidate, but I never really agreed with it. To me, I thought it was just a waste of time. And now you see that even Jim Clyburn is his state, and he co-signed it. He agreed with South Carolina becoming the early primary state. You see there's friction here, even within the Democratic Party. Long story short, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And the Black misleadership class in the Democratic Party, people like Hakei Jeff and Jim Clyburn, are not good leaders. Now, somebody needs to say it. They're not good leaders. We can look back and we can disagree with the way that Obama turned out. But one thing that Obama was able to do, and apparently still has been doing behind the scenes, is calling shots, leading in some way, shape, or form. Hakei Jeff just did an interview. He couldn't even really tell you what the plan is, when it is, what time, if they choose to do anything, because they don't have a plan. And the Democratic Party has bad leadership. And I'm sorry, but all of us at some point have had a job and we had a review, whether it was a 90-day review, whether it's the annual review, which will determine whether or not you get a raise or how much of a raise that you get. Management has reviews too. And sometimes when the leadership is not doing a good job and they're not a good leader, they're demoted or they're removed. And I don't understand how this will be any different when we look at the political system. You can't just keep somebody in a spot just because they're there. So let's just let it ride out. But that goes back to us needing to demand more. Because what you'll see they're doing right now, and they'll go ahead and add Wes Moore to this Black misleadership class as well, because they are already trying to push him in that way, right? Wes Moore, the guy who vetoed the reparations bill in Maryland, this guy right here, they're trying to push him to run for president. So like they're handpicking people to be leaders that are not good leaders. And when you're not a good leader, you need to go. So this is Jim Clyburn, Wes Moore, and Tim Waltz at Jim Clyburn's Fish Fry. Listen to this.
I know I'm not running, but the thing I'm also very clear about is, anyone who's talking about 2028 is not taking 2025 very seriously. We are watching direct assaults on our communities, direct assaults on our neighbors, direct assaults on our legacies. That's taking place right now.
This is the time. This is the time when people are going to learn that you are not just going to attack us and attack our future and attack our children and think we're going to take it.
So let me tell you about Wes Moore. You know why he's there? So he said he's not running in 2028. We'll see. But he says he's not running. So people are like, well, why is he there? I think this is his way of trying to get back more support from Black people after vetoing that reparations bill. Because let me tell you something, the streets have been talking about that. It was not just those of us in independent media. The streets have been talking about that. It's not just Black people in Maryland. It's also Black people in other states too, okay? So I think this is Wes Moore, like, let me get out there and help Clyburn and them and go to the fish fry and da-da-da-da. You looking for something else. You looking for some form of leadership. That's why you're there. Same thing with Tim Waltz. He's there because they looking to do something else. You think they're just there because they want to be nice?
We fight back. We mobilize. We march. We push. We get results and we win.
Well, that is Maryland Governor Wes Moore speaking Friday in South Carolina at Congressman Jim Clyburn's world-famous fish fry.
I don't know why they call it world famous. I'm telling you guys, when I lived there, I know people that went to this fish fry and they said the fish is dry. So that's just crazy. But this is it, guys. See how they handpick people? So they handpicked Jim Clyburn. They handpicked Hakei Jeffries. Now they're handpicking Wes Moore. They handpick who they want their puppets to be. Anyone getting the amount of attention that they're giving to Wes Moore. Don't forget, Barack Obama said he wanted there to be a primary, and he wanted the people that he wanted the ticket to be was Gretchen Whitmer and Wes Moore. He was already handpicked. He's another puppet. All of them.
And the man my next guest says is the 2028 Democratic candidate that no one's talking about. Though now you are. Journalist and MSNBC political analyst Alexis McCammon is joining me now. Good to see you. Your latest piece on Substack, The Myth of the Political Savior, Why Democrats Keep Falling for the Same Fantasy and What It's Costing Us. Wow, let's get into that, because you heard him say that he's not running in 2028. But what is the significance of him showing up at this event in South Carolina?
Yeah, Alex, thank you for having me. And, frankly, it's a smart thing for him to answer that he's not running, because he's showing that he's focused on not just the present moment, but of course, being governor and governing for the people in this moment. But a lot of folks should be talking about Wes Moore as a potential 2028 candidate, in part because of that, because he is someone who has this substance and has been a servant to his country in many different ways. He's a military vet. He formerly ran the Robin Hood Foundation. He's a Harvard grad. He's a public servant through and through. But
pause. So you see what they're starting to do, right? because they want to make him or Hakeem, either one of them, they want to make them the next Barack Obama. Harvard graduate. Does this sound familiar to you? You see the people they keep pushing in front of your face? The Harvard graduate, military vet. She's like, oh, he has substance. I don't really give a damn. I don't care that you went to Harvard. I don't care. I really don't. That doesn't make me say, oh, I should vote for that person because they went to Harvard. No, it really doesn't. In fact, when you look at a lot of the presidents that we've had in this country, most of them went to some type of Ivy League school. So that's not a woo for me anymore. We had a black guy who was president that went to Harvard. And how'd that turn out? His name was Barack Obama. That's what you would get with the Wes Moore. That's what you would get with the Hakei Jeffries. See, they just repeat the same thing over and over. So it is 2025. It's not 2028. We haven't even gotten to midterms. And they're already telling you who you should support. This is how it works. And it's always people from the Black misleadership class, the people who say, you got to take the issues that impact the Black community and put them at the bottom or take them off the list. And we'll do all this other stuff first. Let's focus on things like democracy from a party that's a corporation. We got to focus on our constitutional rights for a party that wants to silence people. Anything so that you're not focusing on real economic issues and things, real issues that impact the Black community. So they want you to elect a Black person, but they don't want you to elect a Black person that actually wants to do something for the Black community. That's how it works. Let me let her finish.
He's not someone who wants to sort of oversaturate the airwaves or make everything about himself. What's also interesting about him showing up to that event, though, is that there were some Democrats who wanted to disinvite him from that dinner altogether in South Carolina because he vetoed a bill in Maryland to give reparations to folks in his state. And that's an interesting 2028 calculus, too, because, of course, he's a Democratic governor in a blue state where he could do something that progressive, but people might consider that too radical, and it could come back to haunt him in 2028 if he does run.
So let me explain something to you guys, right? So do you see what just happened, the conversation that just took place? So notice she mentioned the reparations bill. I told you it has made it to other states. Black people are talking in other states as well, not just Maryland. That's why he was there, to try to garner up more support again. He's not there because he wanted to just be nice and hang out with Jim Clyburn. These relationships in Congress are transactional. You know what I'm saying? So he may not be in Congress, he's a governor, but this is a transactional relationship. That's how DC works. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You come down here for me during this fish fry and I'll make sure and help and get behind you if you run in 2028. And they're all in on it, right? So you see what she did? So the Black woman comes on here and she says, if he decides whether or not he wants to turn differently on reparations, some may consider that to be too radical. Does everybody see the game that corporate media plays? They always get someone that looks like you to tell you what you are owed might be too extreme or too radical. Corporate media.
Interesting. So look, Democrats could potentially have a pretty deep bench in the next presidential cycle. Shouldn't voters hear from other contenders like Governor Andy Beshear, Governor J.D. Pritzker, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Governor Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris? I mean, don't they all have something to say people should hear?
Absolutely, they do. And I think we're going to hear from a lot of them and then some. And you're already seeing a lot of those folks step out. I mean, we just saw Governor Tim Walz, as you showed in that video with Governor Moore as well, but we see other people. Gavin Newsom has started his own podcast. Pete Buttigieg has gone across the airwaves. People are talking about Governor Gretchen Whitmer. You'll notice it's a lot of Democratic governors, and I think that's an interesting through line for people to consider too. Of course, big names like Pete Buttigieg are an exception to that, and they get a lot of attention because he's grown and built so much name recognition at this point. But governors in particular have proven to be really formidable candidates and kind of proven servants and lawmakers who get things done for the people in a way that folks who serve at the national level don't have that same view all the time.
Okay. What governor won presidency recently? I'll wait. You see, here's the thing, folks. Everything that she just said there towards the end, surefire way for Democrats to lose in 2028. Because people don't want more of the same. People want something different. I say we need to demand more because the reason how we end up with people like Hakei Jeff, Jim Clyburn, Wes Moore, Barack Obama is because they kind of were the people that they're black, but they're not grassroots. They're corporatist. So we demand more by not supporting people that are corporate. We demand more by supporting the grassroots. And I think fundamentally, that's really where we need to go. And that's where we need to stay as voters, all of you, not just black people. I'm talking to all of you watching. I really do believe that we should not be supporting corporate candidates. We have to stick with the grassroots. And by the way, that doesn't even necessarily mean political. The grassroots does so many different things for people in the community, whether it's a grassroots organization, whether it's mutual aid, which those of us at RBN do. You see, once you start to see that detachment from the grassroots and said person, then you know they're not going to be in it for you. So we got to pay close attention to that. So we demand more by not supporting people that are corporate. We demand more by not supporting the people that typically are backed by the media. Usually the person that corporate media is backing is not the person you should support. I mean, they have the best interest. They have the best interest in mind for donors, right? That's why the media supports them. That's why they stick by them. But typically, if the media is promoting them, you probably shouldn't support that person. But all of these people, they're just a part of the Black misleadership class. And there's different generations, behind them and different generations that will come in the future. And I'm just trying to alert people to this because Wes Moore is the next Hakei Jeff or Barack Obama. Hakei Jeff, if he keeps his seat, is the next Jim Clyburn at some point, and also maybe the next Barack Obama. They're lining people up. And one thing they all seem to have in common is that they all seem to have this undying support for Israel. That's how you know they ain't going to do nothing for you. We got to pay attention and we have to demand more. We really do. These are not leaders. These are not leaders. Malcolm X was a leader. Fred Hampton was a leader. MLK was a leader. Could have been more radical on some things, but still. The people that you see on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, these politicians that you see, they're not leaders. They're puppets. And I think you know who's pulling their strings. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.